On December 20, 1944, deep inside a requisitioned chateau near Ziegenhain, General Hasso von Manteuffel stared at a situation map that no longer made sense. Red grease pencil marks, American unit symbols, had reappeared where he knew with mathematical certainty they had been destroyed only days earlier. He turned to his staff and asked a question that sounded less like strategy and more like disbelief. Where are they getting these men? Only 4 days before, on December 16, the Ardennes offensive had erupted through fog and snow. German artillery shattered the quiet forests of eastern Belgium, and panzer columns punched holes in thin American lines. Entire U.S. regiments were mauled. At Losheim Gap, the 14th Cavalry Group was smashed aside. At Schnee-Eifel, 2 regiments of the 106th Infantry Division, over 6,000 men, were encircled and forced to surrender by December 19. By any previous European standard, that should have opened a permanent wound in the enemy's front. But the wound closed almost immediately. By December 18, trucks from the U.S. Third Army were grinding north through sleet and darkness, headlights taped, engines straining. Men jumped down from cargo beds stiff with cold, boots already soaked before they ever saw combat. These were replacements, teenagers from Iowa and Pennsylvania, coal miners' sons from West Virginia, clerks from Brooklyn, many of them in France less than 3 weeks. Some still smelled of the canvas and oil of the troop ships that had brought them across the Atlantic. The German High Command had expected American divisions to collapse like exhausted machinery. Their intelligence estimates, based on First World War experience and early Eastern Front patterns, assumed that heavy losses would hollow out units for months. But the American system did not work like theirs, or like anyone else's. By late 1944, the United States Army replacement system was feeding men into Europe at a rate no Axis planner had ever witnessed. On December 1, 1944 alone, over 45,000 replacement troops were present in the European theater. When the bulge erupted, Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force rerouted replacements already earmarked for quiet sectors and rushed them forward by rail and truck, often within 72 hours of arrival at depots like Reims and Liège. German generals noticed the effect immediately. On December 22, Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt reported to OKW that American units showed unexpected regenerative capacity. He meant this literally. Divisions shattered 1 week were back on the line the next, patched, reinforced, imperfect but present. Take the 28th Infantry Division. Bloodied nearly beyond recognition in the Hürtgen Forest in November, it was thrown directly into the path of the German 5th Panzer Army along the Our River. Its regiments cracked under the pressure. Battalions dissolved. And yet, by December 20, new rifle companies, stuffed with replacements, were again manning roadblocks near Neufchâteau. They were not veterans. Many fired their rifles in anger for the first time. But they were there. For German commanders trained to preserve the fighting core of elite formations, this was baffling. The Wehrmacht relied on cohesion. Men trained together, bonded together, bled together. Replacements were trickled in slowly, often months later, and rarely restored a unit's original strength. When a regiment was destroyed, it stayed destroyed. The Americans did not think this way. The U.S. Army treated divisions like living frameworks, structures that could be refilled. Men were interchangeable components in a vast industrial military pipeline. Brutal, yes. Effective, unquestionably. Nowhere did this shock German expectations more than at Bastogne. On December 19th, the 101st Airborne Division was ordered into the town with almost no notice. They arrived in piecemeal columns, some men without winter coats, others armed with unfamiliar weapons. Replacement paratroopers, many without jump experience, were shoved into foxholes beside veterans of Normandy. German intelligence believed the division had already been exhausted in Holland. It should not have been combat ready. Yet on December 20, as snow fell thick and silent, American lines solidified. New faces appeared overnight, machine gun crews replaced the dead, ammunition stocks reappeared by airdrop. To the German 26th Volksgrenadier Division attacking from the east, it felt like fighting an enemy that healed while being wounded. German officers captured later would describe the psychological effect. Lieutenant Colonel Siegfried Knopp, serving with the 18th Volksgrenadier Division, recalled seeing American units reform after losses that would have ended a German regiment. The implication was chilling. Attrition, the foundation of German operational thinking, was failing. This regenerative power was not just manpower, it was logistics married to manpower. The Red Ball Express, still running in December despite snow and ice, funneled uniforms, boots, rifles, and radios forward at astonishing speed. Replacement depots carried standardized equipment. A man killed near St. Vith on December 17th could be replaced by another with the same rifle model, the same web gear, the same ammunition within days. The cost was human. Replacements often arrived alone, assigned to units whose dead they would never know. They slept in foxholes still smelling of cordite and frozen blood. Many were killed within hours. A private from the 9th Infantry Division wrote on December 24, 1944, that he had been in Europe for 9 days and had already helped bury 3 men whose names he never learned. German generals sensed this cost, but could not exploit it fast enough. Their own losses could not be replaced. On January 1, 1945, as Luftwaffe fighters burned on Allied airfields during Operation Bodenplatte, American air units filled their ranks again. New pilots, new ground crews, while German squadrons ceased to exist. By mid-January, the Ardennes Bulge collapsed. American divisions that should have been broken were now advancing eastward again. On January 16, 1945, as the 1st and 3rd Armies linked up near Houffalize, German commanders understood the truth. They were not fighting an army in the traditional sense. They were fighting a system that could absorb loss, replace flesh with flesh, and keep moving. For German generals raised on the belief that morale and cohesion were irreplaceable, this was incomprehensible. For the men on the ground, the replacements whose boots froze and whose hands shook as they loaded rifles, it was simply survival, one anonymous life filling the space of another. The war would be decided not only by tactics or courage, but by the cold arithmetic of replacement. And by the time German commanders grasped that reality, it was already too late.